Imagine the year is 2012. Stalker 2 was only a failed project at the time, left to die the previous year, and the developers were fired and had nothing else to make. Some of the former GSC developers were already busy with their own franchise named Metro, but a handful of others wanted to make their own franchise instead, and to be the ones at the top, and not just reach for the stars, but to make that which they could have never done before. And that's how we got Survarium. Survarium was a free-to-play first-person shooter that was trying to be Stalker, but multiplayer. Ignoring that Stalker has its own multiplayer, their idea was to bring the single-player portion into an MMO-like environment, where you could grab a load out of your own equipment, hop into a level with a bunch of other people, and loot for better gear and for items from said players. Kinda like Escape from Tarkov, but a couple years before that. But how would they manage to make such a game a reality, especially when it's free to play? Pay to win mechanics! Nah, I'm joking. Survarium is actually a pretty simple game. You put in equipment and your favorite gun, play the game in one of its various PvP modes, use the experience as well as the currencies you find to get better equipment, and the more you play, the better equipment you'll get. Kinda like Call of Duty or Battlefield. Except the later weapons end up being a direct upgrade to what you have early on. Now, it's not by so much that it makes skill irrelevant, but it's still noticeable. Like, say, here's the AKM that you start with. The AK from the end of the game is better or equal in every way. And I was facing players that more or less used just endgame weaponry, but it wasn't so unfair that it prevented me from progressing with the AKM. No, the downside to those endgame weapons is that they're also ungodly expensive to maintain and are only for those that put in way too many hours into Survarium to unlock and improve everything. But if you couldn't just, play for hours on end like me right now, there's a solution that existed just for you. It's called money. You spend lots and lots of money on a game that died, roughly a month ago? Mind you, I found out about this game, when it initially came out, since it promised Stalker, but multiplayer, and I thought to myself, I'll just wait until the early access is done and grab it when it's finished. Yeah, that never happened. The game was shut down on May 31st, 2022, and while I was knee-deep into a GTA 4 review that might actually never see the light of day now, I used all the spare time I had in 3 days, abandoned all my other projects, all just to get footage so I could make a review right before it disappeared forever, as the developers have no intention of letting people keep their game up themselves. You want some single player? Nope. You want to do bots? Nope. Did I get any footage of it? Of course I did. I got like 18 hours worth of it, and my honest opinion of the game? It's alright. Survarium was deep in criticism for many broken promises of it being an MMO. The engine was based off the X-Ray engine to the point that it could just be called X-Ray 2.0. There was a lot of unjust banning due to criticism and major community issues in general. The game apparently takes place in Russia, but one of the levels is the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, which gets really awkward due to certain events from February 24th. And it also had a massive historic problem with cheaters that apparently they just never cared to really fix. But by the time I arrived, it was all legit, all fair, all honestly kind of fun. The only cheats I saw were from the in-game bots themselves. They have some weird anti-recoil adjustment that's just not fun to play against. They're not hard to kill though, but except for the mode against bots where you're meant to raid treasures for your inventory, Survarium only had PvP modes like Team Deathmatch but smaller, Conquest from Battlefield, Gun Game, and Defuse from Counter-Strike. Now, granted, a lot of the fun I had was helped by the fact that the developers gave me, and every other player, $500 worth of in-game gold as a farewell present, which was enough to buy the expensive late-game custom-skinned weapons, which cost a reasonable $30 a gun. Okay, I'll be honest, it's not reasonable at all. I suppose they really wanted whales to dump money into the game. You frustrate the player with a slow grind as much as possible, and then open the tab while they realize just how much effort they could skip with a credit card. And then they realize they've blown $100 on a game worth like $20 at most? It would be more if it had more content, but that grind, I tried, okay? I had literally everything going for me. I used experience multipliers when I could win off my gold, which cost, about 5 to 10 cents per match. I had premium, I had the patches that gave extra experience. I did reasonably well in matches, I was set. The game has 4 factions with 5 ranks each, right? And there was no way that I could get to 4th rank in anything, because it would have taken, no joke, about 20 to 30 hours per faction with all of my bonuses active. If I just, laser focus on that one faction. And that probably would have taken like another 20 to 30 hours on top of that without the multipliers. And then there's that 5th rank where all the top tier stuff lies, which would have taken, I don't know, maybe like 200 hours of raw grinding as a free player. And remember, there's 4 factions. Each of them have unique equipment. You want to go for all 4 factions. Yeah, no wonder people think this game is pay to win. To get the best equipment, you either have to spend as many hours as you'd put into a full-time job, or like $40 for a full set of armor with the fancy whale colors. Another roughly $10 for the equipment like the sentry and the claymore. God knows how much rerolling the weapons to actually get the effects you want. Like rate of fire, bleed, less recoil, the good stuff. But at the end of my time before the server shut down, I did manage to only spend $150 on the game that they gave me. And I was actually throwing money away trying to perfect roll some of my equipment. But I could have been throwing more away easily. Like, if I was just trying to try absolutely everything, I could have easily spent another $200 in skins alone just to get all the other endgame gear to avoid grinding the hundreds of hours I didn't have. Mind you, all of this stuff you see can be gotten for free in some degree, so technically accomplishable without spending money. Like, for example, this VSS, which I bought because it was a silent laser that could also shred through enemies. Yeah, this gun, yeah, there's a free version of it in tier 4 for some reason, just without the silencer, which you'd have to craft yourself. And I could have unlocked that one for $10 instead of $30, or I could have just played the game and maybe I've eventually unlocked it after another 20 to 30 hours. Double if I didn't have the experience boost. But you know what? Shame the game's gone now. I actually found it fun enough to have probably kept going even at the expense of all my spare hard drive space. And while I'm ranting incoherently about spending unreasonable amounts of money to skip progression, the game still does have a portion which requires actual grinding to progress. The skill tree. Yeah, it gives you minor buffs with every point you put into it, but these buffs make a huge difference in how you play. And as far as I know, there was no way to skip this with your credit card. Yeah, you'd think that 2% more protection from anomalies isn't a lot, and it absolutely isn't. But if you get enough of it, you can get like 50% bonus from all artifacts, or be able to move with your legs broken, or make it so that you can't kill teammates with your claymores anymore. Like actual important bonuses. And the stuff from the skill tree at the end are really good too. Shame I never got a chance to try them out. I did manage to get a handful of guns and shoot them. And here's my opinion on them. Standard assault rifles, they're a little bit weak, but they're good. Like, everybody uses them for a good reason. Except for the VSS, which has like stupidly low recoil for some reason, and it makes it a laser. Yeah, you only get 20 bullets instead of 30, but it's not really a downside when you can definitely kill them in like 8. The sniper rifles, they hit hard. Even in the early game, you can one-shot people. So that's why I went all in on armor. I don't like getting one-shot. And I hated the sniper rifles because I can't shoot them, but other people are good at them. And there's carbines. They're a mix of the two. Like assault rifle, sniper rifle, put them together, they're a carbine. But I'm actually really bad with shooting them. Like, they do okay damage, but they're not as good as either assault rifle or sniper. There's SMGs and LMGs, and they're both fun in their own right, but the weak damage and recoil respectively made me go back to rifles. There is a weapon that made me realize that I'm doing everything wrong, and that's a snowball. I'm just kidding, the snowball sucks. It's the shotguns. Yeah, one of them is a standard shotgun. It hits hard, reloads slowly. But then I found the Benelli M4 right on the last day that I played it. And it sneezes shells that don't hit quite as hard, but when you can shoot as many rounds as you want within a second, you don't get a chance to say no thank you to them. You just die. And that was fun, and a beautiful wrench to throw into the game's balance otherwise. It's really satisfying to go and find a combination that most people just didn't use for whatever reason. Yeah, it's not gonna be great against multiple people, but one-on-one, you're not surviving 6 shells. Like, I can flat out miss. And if you do survive, oh, I'll just go back around the corner. Reload. By the time you come near me, oh, look at that, you're in point-blank range. You die. I also mentioned that there's anomalies and artifacts, but I never explained what they were. Okay, if you've ever played Stalker, there are anomalies all over the zone that you have to carefully traverse around, otherwise you die. And sometimes you can find a magic rock called an artifact as a reward. And what are artifacts? They're essentially space radiation garbage, which cause one of many weird effects that tend to defy the laws of physics, biochemistry, thermodynamics, although, you know, usually at the cost of you also dying because radiation still causes radiation, and radiation is deadly. Anyway, since Survarium is not Stalker, but is a fast-paced multiplayer shooter, these anomalies have been dumbed down to essentially be deadly balls of gas. And the anomalies are one of 4 buffs, like movement speed, anomaly protection, health regen, and just damage reduction. I think damage reduction's the best rock, by the way. It's basically like extra life on top of your life, and they're totally worth grabbing, especially if you bother to get anomaly protection and ways to increase the powers of the buffs. I know I mentioned the 2% more protection from anomalies. Oh wow, yeah, sure, go get 10% more. But I think the gimmick here is that it's additive with whatever your equipment gives you. So if you, for example, like get 60% resistance from your equipment, that means that with these 5 points, you're not taking 10% less damage from them. You're taking 25% less damage relative to if you didn't have those points, which means you can come out with your magic rock without risking death. It's great. But you know what else was great? The music. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of it, as it mostly played through the menus and loading screens, and it was pretty short. And it wasn't particularly memorable. They nailed the vibe. Yeah, some tracks are a bit faster paced to try and get you hyped up. Some tracks are nothing but drone. And then one of them decides to play the melody to Moscow Nights to unnerve you because, you know, why not? The same reason as to why there's a Christmas version of the lobby music. Why not make something like this for an event? I just wish there was more of it. It's only like 10 short clips and then the lobby music, and that's more or less it. I mean, thankfully the developers did release most of the soundtrack online for free and lossless quality, but they only did that after the game shut down. I'll leave a link in the description to all the stuff they gave up, but there's no guarantees that it'll remain up forever. I actually do recommend somebody throw this onto archive.org. But overall, it's just alright. I actually wouldn't recommend anyone play this game because there's better first-person shooters that are like this. You know, ignoring the fact that you can't, of course. And it's not because it was impossible to go and, you know, like, keep this game alive. No. Private servers could have totally been a thing. It's just that, and here's the words from one of the programmers, it was a decision of letting RIP into the hands of the public, allowing any possible alteration that we would ultimately be accountable for that we or the investors didn't want. But you're not altering the IP. All you're doing is altering the game a bit, and what do you care? You're not selling the game anymore. You're not making money off the game anymore. Excluding the fact that custom private servers wouldn't be modifying the intellectual property in any way, I'm pretty sure I could have done more damage to the IP with Source Filmmaker. You know, rip the characters. They're X-Ray 2.0, right? They're probably compatible with the original X-Ray engine. You could probably go and port them over to Source. Get myself a furry model. You know where I'm going with this. At least I hope you do. I really hope you're like over the age of 18 and I'm not explaining the concept of furry porn to you, because that'd be really, really awkward and YouTube does not like it. I already got a video age restricted, but that's totally justified because it had booba. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is, it's just a basic shooter with a Stalker-like coat of paint. There's nothing really that you can do to the IP that would ruin it, especially, you know, as fans. And while I appreciate that the game exists because it was generally fun to play, it was long on its deathbed before it got a bullet in the head with the shutdown. It wasn't received very well, it didn't have a lot of players, like, it was an okay game, but my final score is Slava Ukraini because I can't think of anything better here. It had potential, but after like 9 years in early access, it was never realized. It was never going to be realized. And now we have a game that, you know, shouldn't have deserved to die, like, you know, all of them, but here we are.